Yo, what's going on, guys? I'm going to be going over the best AD carries for carrying solo queue with. This list is going to be heavily skewed towards easeability of use and solo queue, not really duo queue, so do keep that in mind. This list is also made specifically for Iron through Diamond, so some champions might be slightly stronger for your elo or slightly weaker for your elo. Even if a champion is low tier on this list, if you enjoy playing them, you should keep playing them. Just know it's going to be a lot harder than it would be for possibly some other champions higher up on the list. To start off the list strong, we have Kalista. She's personally one of my favorite AD carries in the game, one of my favorite champions in the game. However, she's poop tier. She's legit F tier. Even if you're very good on her, even if you're scripting on her, it's very challenging to win the majority of your games, even if you're dual queue with your support like a Thresh or Nautilus like Kalistas tend to do. Once she's 3 items, she tends to fall off so hard that it's very challenging for her to do anything at all. She doesn't have long auto attack range, she doesn't have good scaling, and if you hit her with a single movement speed slow, she can't even really auto. A single movement speed slow makes it to where she can't jump. She basically has to stand still, otherwise she loses out on too much damage output. Next up on the list, we have Veigar. Yes, he's a magic damage champion. There are plenty of magic damage champions that can play the kind of AD carry, AP carry, bot lane position, and they are played there frequently. And Veigar is one of them. He is roughly E tier. He can easily be higher up though. It just depends on how well you are at farming on him and how well you stay alive. And then in D tier, we have Nyla. Nyla's an interesting champion. Her early game's absolutely terrible, but with her XP bonus and her just scaling and auto attack block, it gives her a lot of potential agency in games. Although we don't typically see her carrying very hard, she definitely has that ability to do so. In the same vein, we have Draven. He does have the ability to carry very hard, but no matter how fed they get, they'll always die and throw their shutdown gold, so their gold bonus doesn't tend to matter too much, although he does have decent carry potential. Let's go ahead and flesh out E tier. We have Jinx, very support reliant, extremely mobile. There's a lot of champions who can get through her snare. She has a special snare that knocks people out of the air, but then you still have things like Hecarim R, Malphite R, Warwick R, abilities that are unstoppable to where she lays her traps and she still gets wrecked. So she has got to watch out for those champions. If the enemy team doesn't have those champions, she could easily be C tier. But right now, currently in the meta, she is an E tier champ. And then close to her, we have Aphelios. Similar reason, extremely support reliant, really not the strongest right now, extremely immobile as well. And he suffers from the enemy jungle ganks. And then same thing with Kog'Maw, extremely support reliant, suffers from jungle ganks, he's immobile. Senna's an interesting one. In a proper duo queue environment, she can easily be C or B tier, but the thing is, played as just a normal AD carry with some random support who's probably not going to play a tank support like Kench or Nautilus, she's E tier. But it's still better than Kalista, so not bad, because she's got much more range, much more scaling, and honestly much easier to play. Behind Draven, we have Ziri. Riot's had to turbo nerf her a lot and often to where you really shouldn't play her if you're not duo with your support. She can still 1v9, or I should say 2v8 if she's duo with a Yuumi and both the players are decent. But in general, playing Ziri in a solo queue environment, not the best idea right now. Behind her, we have Tristana. She has many hard matchups. I mean, just the fact that Jinx Snare can knock her out of the air, Draven Knock can knock her out of the air, and her engages are extremely telegraphed. She's very reliant on her support player to know what they're doing. Otherwise, jumping in is just going to get her killed. Behind her, we have Lucian. Not in the best spot right now. Back when Bork was stronger, Lucian was a lot better. But now he's kind of forced to play more of a crit build, and he's just not the best crit AD carry out there. Not a long-range AD carry either. Behind him, we have Varus. He used to be an AP monster, and then Riot turbo nerfed it because you could literally kill like anyone with 3 autos and an ability when you're full build. AP Varus, not what it used to be. It's still one of his stronger build types because he can pick up a crown and become very tanky very quickly and still have good damage output with something like a Hellblades or a Lethal Tempo. Behind him, we have Sivir. She's a safe pick. Her issue is her 500 auto attack range. Standard AD carry auto attack range is 550. Now then you have this turd burglar Sivir at 500. She's getting outranged by everybody on the roster. And then you have really long range AD carries like Jinx or Kog'Maw empowered, or even Caitlyn, or even Ashe. Ashe has 600. So Sivir can struggle pretty hard in lane. She has one of the worst abilities in the game, which is her boomerang bounce. It does almost nothing. It's only good for the attack speed bonus. Sivir, really not that great right now, but she can be amazing when she is meta. She's just not at the moment. Next up is Samira. Somewhat reliant on having hard CC supports that she can play off of with her passive to extend the CC. If she doesn't have that, then she doesn't have a whole lot because her R can be canceled by any CC other than a slow, to where if the enemy team picks a lot of hard CC, there's not much she can do, especially if she can't win wall it like Alistar CC or Zac CC or Malzahar R. You can instantly cancel her ultimate. There's not much she has, but if you pick her in the right comp where the enemies can't instantly cancel your R with things that you can't block with your win wall, then you're good to go on her. In front of her, we have Caitlyn. She's not strong in the meta, but she's still extremely consistent with her long range and very easy to play in early game, mid game, and late game team fights. Of course, she's outscaled by other AD carries like Jinx, who end up with more range than her and more damage, but her early game spreads out her gameplay experience. Ahead of her, we have Jhin. He's arguably the easiest AD carry in the game to play. His skill shots really aren't hard to land. If you land a single skill shot, you tend to land them all because enemies will be slowed or snared. And kiting on him is easy. You auto attack like once every 5 seconds, and anyone can do it with that, even without attack move click. Ahead of him, we have Ziggs, extremely consistent pick, the secondary AP bot laner right now for carrying with. Ahead of him, though, we have Karthus. Karthus is just a better version of Ziggs because of his R is not a skill shot. So even if you're positioning great in a team fight and you get focused on Karthus, you can still pop R after you're dead and get immense value inside of team fights. You can also abuse Zhonya's, and it puts enemies in a tough position. The whole concept of Zhonya's breaks the AD carry role because it's something that stops you from dying. The enemies overextend, which is why AD carries in general can't build Zhonya's because they don't have AP scalings, which is why Kai'Sa is A tier. Kind of magic damage Kai'Sa, static Shiv, Hello Blades, super obnoxious to play against. Even if you dive deep on her, she can pop Zhonya's, and Zhonya's doesn't really even hurt her to buy since she has AP scalings. Riot loves having diversity and different build paths, but with that being said, allowing AD carries to efficiently build Zhonya's is an enormous mistake, and it's why Karthus and Kai'Sa in higher elo become S+ tier, because there's just not enough gold in the game to efficiently kill AD carries who have Zhonya's, and you kind of lose the game by default if they position efficiently. Kai'Sa, easy A tier. She's pick and ban right now. I'd recommend not letting her get through just because of the Zhonya's alone. Ahead of her, we have Swain. Swain, outrageously consistent, outrageous CC. He can abuse Zhonya's as well. That's one of his main features. If enemies dive in on you or your team, or they're throwing everything at you, use Zhonya's and you are still doing full damage output, healing you, and perpetually staying on if there's someone inside of it. Behind Karthus, we have Vayne. She's the reason why tanks really aren't that good. Vayne's in a decent enough spot. Rageblade, Kraken have been bug fixed, so she's sitting in a good spot. Once she can hit her 2-3 item power spike, she's one of the highest damage output champions in the game, basically a ranged Master Yi because of her true damage. If the enemy team has a tank and you pick Vayne, it's almost a guaranteed win as long as they're not dying in lane. If you do want to go Vayne, though, you should probably ban Nautilus. Nautilus R counters are out hard. Even if you go invisible, it'll hunt you down, and you can't QSS it either because it's a knockup. So just ban Nautilus if you're going to run the Vayne. You should be able to kite everything just fine. Behind her, we have Xayah, great champion for kiting on. She kind of has a Zhonya's on her R, a built-in Zhonya's being untargetable and instantly kind of getting out of everything, which is why she's so high up on this list. She's decent in the meta. She plays well with crit, and yeah, pretty solid. Really everything the B tier and up has some degree of high survivability. You wouldn't think of Karthus in that way, but it's the fact that he can go for Zhonya's and has his consistency on his R. Next up is Seraphine. Once again, a potential Zhonya's abuse champion. Outrageously long range. She outranges every AD carry in the game with her abilities, making her consistent in the early game, mid game, and of course late game. One good Seraphine R completely ends fights and beats everything really. Then we have Twitch. Not the strongest in the meta, but still a consistent pick as long as you're willing not to die in lane phase and make it to level 6 for his R all-ins. We'll go ahead, toss him into C tier, and throw Yasuo in front of him. Now, if you're not duo on Yasuo, you will be low C tier, if not possibly D tier. But if you do duo, or if you are with a hard CC support like Alistar or Blitzcrank or Nautilus, he's a menace. He's very hard to deal with because of his win wall. Against most AD carries that counters. Now, there are things like Swain, R, or Karthus abilities that his win wall does absolutely nothing against, but in general, or even Senna autos, but in general, Yasuo win wall will counter out the vast majority of the AD carry cast. Next up, we have Ezreal. Extremely consistent. You don't really go Zhonya's on him. You don't play him AP right now, but he has a lot of damage output. You can abuse Trinity. Trinity's in a good spot, or you could just play him with Essence Reaver, and you can pick up items like Swirl that have perma slows. His E is a great kite out and escape tool. It's mainly the Swirls. The Swirls gives him ridiculous survivability to where any tank or bruiser really just can't stay on top of him because he'll perma slow you. Ezreal, easy A tier option. You can blind pick him. You can first pick pick him, you can pick him with any comp against any comp. He's that good. The only difference is if they have loads of CC, you're not gonna be able to auto attack quite as much. You'll have to rely more on abilities. But even then, I mean, his abilities are good. His autos is 550 range. It's not like he has a 500 auto attack range like Sivir. Next up is Miss Fortune. She has probably the highest AD scaling ability in the game, which is her R. She is somewhat vulnerable though, because she can't really abuse Zhonya's, or she doesn't have extreme survivability like other champions in this area, but she is B tier primarily because of her R. Her lane phase, really not that impressive, extremely average, but at level 6 and up, one good MFR, it's absolutely game ending. Just have the right timing, the right positioning. And finally on this list, we have Ashe in B tier. Nah, I'm just kidding. Easy S tier. Ashe is S tier because her level 1 invades are arguably the strongest in the game. She abuses the lethal tempo. She has a slow on every auto. Even if they flash away, if you hit them with one slow, you can catch up to them without having to burn your own flash because of your approach velocity. Her late games are amazing because of her R. All it takes is one good Ashe R or an easy game-winning pick. And as long as you have at least one teammate in front of you in team fights, you can kite out extremely hard. Champions with mild or little mobility will never, ever, ever, ever be able to touch you, even while you're shredding them up, as long as you're kiting backwards. She is more reliant on having to use attack move click or a click, but if you can get down with using the attack move click or attack click, then you'll be just fine on her. Kiting is pretty easy. She has 600 auto attack range. Easy S tier Ashe. With that being said, if you do need survivability because enemies have 2 long range engaged champs that you can't kite out, like a Malphite R and let's say a Hecarim R, then you'd probably want to push Kai'Sa. But against most enemy team comps where they don't have 2 unstoppable engaged champs, Ashe is the way to go in terms of damage, CC, and raw consistency. If you guys enjoyed this 80 carry tier list, let me know down in the comments below what you agreed with, disagreed with. If you did enjoy, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. My name is King Sticks. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time.